coming up next on The Health Hustle.
I saw him on TikTok one day eating balls, and I was yeah, testicles, and I was very intrigued. And so at first I thought it was a parody. I didn't think there was much validity to it, and so it got me curious, which is a superpower. You have to be curious. You have to be curious. You have to ask why. And so I was like, why is this guy eating balls? And, that translated into eating red meat and all this other stuff. And then I looked deeper into it. I'm like, oh, if I was living backwards in this way, then how else am I living my life backwards? And I think I entered this radical period of my life where I just asked why to everything. I questioned everything. Why am I waking up at this time? Why am I working this job? Why do I hang out with this person? And I found, my conclusion of it all is that humans are just such patternistic creatures that we just fall into these cycles, and it's almost impossible to break out unless you make it a priority, unless you try to. But if you don't know anything's wrong, then you're never going to try to break out. My transition from military to civilian life, I started taking control of my health through nutrition, firstly, and then I obtained this awesome version of myself. I got shredded. I was mentally clear. I was just on my shit, and I was like, oh my God, no pill could make me feel this way. No drug could make me feel this way. This is what it feels like to be in control. This is what it feels like to be healthy. My whole life, I was shoveling Pop-Tarts and Goldfish. I didn't know what it was like to not have brain fog. I didn't know what it was like to not have depression and anxiety. Like these are the norms of society.
What's up, y'all? Corey here. In this episode, I had a chance to sit down with somebody who has become a good buddy of mine. His name is Joe Phair, also known as the Modern Primal. And we got into some pretty juicy stuff on this episode. Some of the things that we got into are how he was able to get me to run my first ever 12 miles, which was a mind-shattering moment for me. What it was like growing up in Austin, Texas. He's one of the few people that has actually grown up in the town of Austin versus people who just kind of move here, breaking free from a victim mentality, dealing with adversity, joining the military and his experience with that, getting out of bad situations, how Bootcamp was for him, another one of those, which is a quote that I use often, marathon training, SEAL training, what the modern primal even is, why he believes that society is backwards, and after hearing him talk about it, you're probably going to agree with that, growing a social media account like he has, the desire for children, that was a fun conversation. Keep moving forward, what Mastic gum is and the health benefits of it, a rapid fire question round, staying curious and why curiosity is a superpower, and so much more. One last thing, if you're a health or fitness professional and you're having difficulties getting leads, one of the most common reasons that I see this is not having a well-defined niche. If you go to the link in the description, I have a free 3-step process that walks you through exactly how to get clarity on which niche is best suited for you and your business. Without further ado, let's go. Joe Phair, welcome to the show. How you doing, brother?
Doing great, Corey. Thanks for having me, man. I'm excited to be here.
I'm super excited. I wanted to start off this episode with telling a quick story about how you were the first person to get me to run 12 miles in my entire life. And prior to doing that to you, I honestly didn't even think my body was capable of doing that. So thank you.
Wow. Dude, that's incredible. I had no idea that was the longest that you had ran. I thought that it was just another Saturday for you. So
nothing about that day was another Saturday. It was literally in my head going to go meet up with you and the other guys and go on this run. I was like, yeah, I'm definitely going to give out at 8. And then we started doing some back road running to add a couple extra miles that we supposedly needed onto this run to hit 12. And it was one of those things where I was like, well, I could walk back to the car or I could stick with these guys and run back to the car. And I was like, well, I guess I'm running. So here we go.
I love it. I love it, man. I love it. That's powerful.
Yeah.
I'm honored to have made that impact on you.
Yeah.
Are you still running right now?
I am, dude. And so then after that, I did the half. Literally this last weekend, I did 10 around the river. And like I was
cranking them out now,
dude. Like I said, prior to that experience of, I guess, breaking the self-limiting beliefs I had about myself. Granted, there was some physical stuff. I had some IT issues, which was kind of my resistance to putting in a lot of miles. Because at that point, when I was running with you, that was very early in my running days, and so I had a lot of aches and pains and IT stuff in the body, learning how to adapt to that kind of training. But I don't think mentally I was there, and I wouldn't have been if it wasn't for you guys in that run. So thank you.
Dude, I'm honored. Honestly, that just goes to show that we can truly do anything that we believe that we can. Because if you were by yourself, like you were saying, like you probably wouldn't have tried to run 12 miles, but you're seeing other people do it, and you told yourself that you were just going to go do it, and so you did it.
Yeah.
So that's amazing.
Appreciate that, man.
Yeah.
So speaking of that, I want to get back to kind of grassroots Austin. So I primarily talk to people that are based in Austin, but I don't know how many people I've had. I think one other person on the show that's actually from Austin.
Yeah.
So from somebody that's literally from Austin, I'm curious from your perspective of what's it like? Are you happy about the fact that you're from Austin? And what could you say that you maybe have learned from growing up in this type of environment?
That's a great question, man. In the moment, like as I was growing up, I never saw it as, this amazing opportunity living in Austin. I just thought it was normal because that's all I knew. Austin has changed significantly. I will not lie. Whether it be the new people that have come in or just some of the new businesses or buildings, it's changed a lot, but something about it just feels almost the same. Like when I go to Barton Springs with my friends and go for a swim or maybe a run around the trail, it's kind of like I'm back in the old days, riding my bike around the city. And they say keep Austin weird for a reason. I think weird is a relative term, and I don't necessarily think it's a bad thing. But yeah, I personally, contrary to probably most people's perspective, I actually like what Austin's turning into. I mean, it's growing exponentially, don't get me wrong, but it's like this black hole that's sucking in all the awesome health and fitness entrepreneurs, and it's just amazing, bro. Like I don't think I would be where I am right now unless I was living in Austin at this amazing time. So
yeah, I totally echo that statement, because I actually recently went home, was it 2 weeks ago now, maybe 2-3 weeks ago, and I remember I went to the same gym that I remember I'd gone to a lot of my life, like in LA Fitness, just outside of my hometown. And I remember going into the gym and seeing the same faces that I remember seeing when I used to live there, doing the same exercises, looking exactly the same, and thinking to myself, like, it feels like it's frozen in time. Versus here, it doesn't. Like, it's ever evolving and changing. So that's why I'm curious as to somebody that maybe grew up in this environment that's like rapid iteration and rapid growth and like seeing the constant changes. Because when I go home, it's like nothing changes.
Yeah. I think it's really interesting. I think that you have to be open for the change, right? So when you're living here and this is all you know and this is the norm and you hang out with the same people every day and you only, face the same experiences daily, I mean, there's not a whole lot of room for growth there. But if you say move to Austin with the intent of surrounding yourself with these amazing people, then that's exactly what's going to happen. And even if it's not your intent, there's still a high chance, I think, that could happen, just because Austin's such a booming city and there's so many awesome, infectious individuals around here.
I'm sure you probably still have friends here from your childhood. Do you still spend time with them? Or do you find that they find themselves in pockets of sticking to themselves?
I don't really hang out with them as much anymore. We still talk and, go to weddings and maybe the occasional backyard barbecue. But I think life just, takes people in different directions if you let it, or it'll keep you exactly where you are if you let it. And no hate to anybody I've previously hung out with a lot. I still have a lot of love for all my friends here. But yeah, I think it was necessary for me to get uncomfortable and surround myself with new people in order to grow.
What is it about you that made you want to take that approach versus maybe other people in your life?
Man, I don't think I'm, special. I don't think I'm more special than anybody else. I think that I was just open to it. I went through a lot of adversity growing up. I went through a lot of adversity when I decided to enlist in the military right after high school. And I think that adversity is just an ultimate superpower to hack growth. And I think that that's kind of what sets me apart from others who maybe don't experience similar growth.
Yeah, I agree. I think the adversity thing it can rather make or break you in so many ways, because I think oftentimes when it touches people, it shatters them and it gets them very victim mindset and poor me and my life is terrible. Or it could do the other, which it's obviously what I've seen from you done the opposite, is it's actually inspired you in the opposite direction of being like, oh no, I need to do something about this. I need to make changes in my life to make sure that doesn't happen to me again.
Yeah, Corey, I think that that's the number one superpower that anybody could develop, is breaking the chains of a victim mentality, because there's every excuse in the world to why you aren't where you want to be, why this is happening to you, why that's happening to you. And in all reality, we are in control. And if you don't believe that you are, and you believe that it's because of your teacher, because of your parents, or because of that person that did you wrong, then you're going to stay like that forever, because you're the only one that can change it. And so, yeah, man, I think breaking out of your victim mentality is the ultimate superpower.
Do you have experience with that?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I can only say this because I used to be the biggest victim of them all. Looking back and reflecting, I find so many ways that I was a victim in my past, and I didn't know it in the moment. Nobody really does, because we're all the main character, right? We're on the hero's journey. But it's just, I think, going back to the adversity, I think it takes massive adversity in order to find that. So when I really started taking control and just deciding that it was my life and I was going to make it my life and live it the way that I wanted to, was when I transitioned out of the military back to civilian life. I had gone through some adversity before that. I had a girlfriend that had broken up with me. I was transitioning to civilian life, so it was very stressful. I had no idea what I was going to do for money. For the past 6 years, I had been in the Navy making, a comfortable paycheck the 1st and 15th of every month. And I just, it stems from when I was a kid though, right? And I lived as a victim ever since I was a kid, because shit happened to me. And as a kid, you don't really get to control it, because, your parents control everything. And it's kind of true, but there comes a time when that's just not a good enough excuse anymore. You can't say that for your entire life. So once you are aware that you can change things, then it's your duty to do so.
Would you mind sharing at all? You don't have to if you don't want to, about like that upbringing, I guess. Like, what is it about your childhood that you felt like kind of shaped a lot of who you are today?
Absolutely. So I would like to preface with the fact that I had a great childhood in a lot of ways. So,
sure.
It's all relative as well.
Totally.
I also want to preface it with that. I think somebody stubbing their toe could be worse than, what I'm about to say, just if they think it is, because it's all relative.
100%.
But growing up, I grew up with, parents that were also just trying to figure it out, just like so many others do. Because when people have kids, it doesn't automatically make them great parents that have this unlimited wisdom. They're still just normal people trying to figure it out. And unfortunately, or fortunately, or however you want to look at it, we're going to take a lot of traits from our parents. Like what they say is law. We think that they're superhumans. We want to be like them. If we don't do what they say, then we're in trouble. Like it's a domestication process almost. And growing up, like I said, my parents were struggling. They struggled with drugs and alcohol, which honestly led me to do the same. When I was around, 15, 16, I started smoking marijuana like every single day. I would party every single weekend. I was living in that victimhood and I didn't even know it, right? Like most people, I was not aware. I didn't, maybe I had the capabilities to become aware, but at the time it just wasn't clicking for me. And so my parents divorced when I was a junior in high school, my junior year summer heading into senior year. So my siblings and I moved with my mom to a new city. So new city, senior year of high school. Great, right?
Wait, where were you at this time?
So I moved from Austin to Bandera, Texas, my senior year of high school.
Where's
which
that?
Is it's the cowboy capital of the world. It's a small country town outside of San Antonio. And that alone was just so hard. Having your parents divorced even when you're a teenager, I think it's just got to be hard for most. I don't want to put everybody in the box, but going through that, I went through the most trials and tribulations that I ever had in my entire life, dealing with not having a relationship with my father, dealing with my mother going through her own battles and addictions. I was forced to step up for my younger siblings. So I remember my very first football game of the season. I came home, it was Friday night, it was super late. My mom wasn't at the game. And I got home and my brother was crying, saying, like, at the front door with no shirt on. Like, my little tiny brother, he was like not even in middle school at the time. And I was like, what's going on? And he was like, I don't know what's wrong with mom. And I walk inside and she's foaming at the mouth, seizing on the couch because she had overdosed on drugs.
Jesus.
Yeah. And she, I think it was because she had such a hard time with the divorce. And like I said, parents are just trying to figure it out. So at the time, I held a lot of anger and resentment. And because, I didn't want to grow up that early. All my friends were talking about what college they were going to go to next and their new cars that their parents had bought them. And I'm getting rides to school from my grandpa and having to take my brother and sister to school, like...
You were the oldest, right?
Yeah, I was the eldest.
Yeah.
So I was really forced to step up, especially for my younger brother. I look at him like a son now. I mean, that experience made us grow so close. Another example is we got evicted from our house, right? Like this was like halfway through the school year. We got evicted from our house. My mom wasn't paying any of the bills because she didn't have any money and because she would just lay at home in bed all day, numbing herself, unfortunately, And I had to muster up the courage to ask my baseball coach after practice that day. I was like, listen, we're getting evicted from our house. My mom's not doing anything. She's just going to let all our stuff get taken. Can I borrow the team to help me move this stuff into, my grandpa's big barn on his property? Because I didn't want to lose all our stuff. I was like, what the heck? Like, what? Like, and I couldn't even process it at the time. Like, I didn't even know how to feel. So I had to get up in front of my baseball team. The last thing that any 17-year-old would want to do, like, that's got to hurt your ego, right? Mm-hmm. Basically, like, guys, I need your help moving all my shit. All I have is a trailer attached to the back of my grandpa's truck. Let's make it happen. And, 20 to 30 17-year-olds went to my house that night in the freaking pitch black and just, it wasn't pretty. We probably damaged a lot of things, but they helped me move my stuff. And I think just going through that experience alone made me such a more calloused human being because that was so uncomfortable. The last thing you ever want to do at that age is admit that your family's fucked up or that, I don't know, because it was all external validation. I cared so deeply about what everybody thought of me. In high school, it's so normalized to think that way. Oh, you're not wearing the newest Nike? Oh, North Face? Or like Polo Ralph Lauren? Then, oh, okay, like whack, whatever it is. And, that's on me for being consumed in that, truly. But being able to look back and be aware of that, I think has made me a better human today. And I don't worry about things like that anymore.
Yeah, you were forced to grow up really fast because at that age, you want to just hang out with your friends and you want to be quote unquote normal. Mm-hmm. You want to have a home. You want to have parents that support you. Yeah. You don't want to be the one that's feels like they're the outcast or the weirdo or having to ask a bunch of guys to help them with a situation you never wanted to be in.
Yeah, absolutely, man. And, that's why I enlisted in the military right after high school. I felt like I had no other option. I was living in a horrible household, and I don't want to speak poorly about my parents because I love them. We may not have the best relationship even still today, but I don't hold any resentment because I know that they're just people. And I know I've made mistakes in the past. Everybody makes mistakes and it's okay. And we should always forgive, but I don't think we should forget, and I'm not saying hold grudges, but
learn from them.
Exactly.
So tell me more about the military thing.
Yes. So I felt like I had no other option after high school. So I enlisted in the military. It was scary. I remember crying about it because I didn't want to go so bad. I was like, I just want to go to college. Can you help me? I was asking every member of my family, aunts and uncles. I was like, is there any way you can help me pay for college? Like, I don't want to go to the military. Like, I swear to God, I was on my knees begging and nobody could help me, It's not their fault. It's like, I'm not upset with anybody, but I guess I was on my own at this point. And so the military was the only thing that made sense. It was the only thing. They're like, hey, we'll give you 3 square meals a day, a rack, and we'll pay for your college afterwards. And so I said, sign me up. I signed up for the Navy. And
why did you choose the Navy?
So I chose the Navy because I wanted to go kind of a safe route. To tell you the God honest truth, I was scared to join the Marines and the Army because I didn't want to go to war or be in any gunfights, and I didn't want to join the Air Force because everyone thinks that they're wussies. No, just kidding. I knew you were going to say that.
I knew you were going to say it. They're soft.
I'm just kidding, airmen. But Navy, bigger ships. We do have a dominant Navy that runs the seas. So I felt pretty comfortable joining. And yeah, I signed a 6-year contract for a electronics technician rate. And so I worked on radars and communications gear. And when I was waiting to join, they gave me about a 10-month period where they were like, hey, 10 more months and then you can go, because they got to like go in cycles and fill certain billets and stuff. And so during that time, I moved back in with my dad. So this was the summer after I graduated high school. I moved in with my dad. We hadn't talked in forever, but I knew that my current situation was poison and I had to get out, with my mother. And so
wait, was your dad living in Austin, or where was this?
He was in an apartment in San Antonio.
Oh, okay.
So this was in San Antonio. I moved in with him in a tiny apartment for like 10 months. I got a job at Firehouse Subs. And I walked to work every single day. Walked to and from work in my red Firehouse Subs collared shirt. It was the most embarrassing thing ever. But I didn't have a car. I didn't have any money. I wanted to get chicks. I wanted to like buy a car. I was tired of being broke, and so I got this job. And yeah, it sucked at the moment. It didn't help me get any girls, by the way. But it did teach me to get uncomfortable and go do things that I don't want to do, man.
Yeah.
Like you could start with something as simple as taking an ice bath. Like you just don't want to do that. Like imagine that at a much amplified scale, like walking to work in a freaking Firehouse Subs t-shirt. Like I find the two very similar in that fact.
Yeah, dude. There's so much growth to happen in adversity. Like I said, it rather makes you or breaks you. Okay, so graduated high school, started working at Firehouse Subs until you could eventually get into the Navy, staying with your dad. Mm-hmm. Two things I want to pull back on. One, what did you learn in those days of just before you moved in with your dad, like living with your mom and your siblings? Obviously, you had to grow up really fast, but what do you feel like that ultimately taught you that you now carry today?
It taught me that if you want to change something, then you have to do it. You can't rely on others to do what you want to happen, even if they're supposed to, right? That's that ultimate responsibility. Nothing's going to change unless I change it. You are the main character. So I think that's the most valuable thing that I can see now looking back.
Yeah.
When it happened, even, up until maybe 2 years ago, I didn't see that. I was still lost in the fact that, man, life's hard.
Yeah.
It's just not fair.
So then the second part to that question then is then living with your father, what did you learn from that experience?
Yeah. So that, honestly, I went from one bad situation to another. My father was still battling demons at that time. We didn't have a great relationship. Yeah, it was really rough, man. Just seeing somebody who you used to look up to and admire so much, like, this is what I want to be. Like, oh, my dad's Superman. Like every young boy, thinks the world of his dad. Not every, but most. And I was one of them. And to see him hurting so bad made me so sad, because I was just like, oh, I just want what he used to be, And I think that was one situation where it really taught me to just understand that people are people and they're going through their own problems. And even if they're supposed to be taking care of you, or no matter how much you love them, they have to be the ones to figure it out, right? All you can do really is just set the example. You can't force anybody to do anything.
Dude, you obviously have a lot of empathy is what I'm getting from you. I mean, if I was to take anything that you've obviously somehow learned, I don't know how you managed to pull this out of it, but the way you talk about your parents and the challenges that you came up with or came through, essentially, like, you obviously have a lot of empathy, man, for their struggles and their pains. And I admire that. That's great.
I appreciate that, man. I really try to. And it's, man, everybody's just doing their best in their own reality. Even if they're not the best version of themselves at that time, that's why that's only their best, because they haven't reached that best version of themselves.
So what were early days in the military like? Because I've heard both ends of the spectrum. I've heard it's friggin' terrible and awful from a lot of people, and then other people that are like, yeah, it's fine, it's boot camp, whatever. What was your experience?
Yeah. Boot camp was very simple. I had a great time at boot camp.
See, this is what I'm talking about. I've talked to other people, and they get bullied, they hate it, it's the worst thing ever. Okay, you're a big guy though.
I could see that. Yeah, I mean, everything's relative, man, but I had a great time in boot camp because I went from this horrible life with not a lot of structure to this very structured life. And not to say that it didn't come with its difficulties, but the return that it gave me was phenomenal. I mean, that's when I really started to, work out seriously, being surrounded by a bunch of other people that were trying to work out or go special warfare or go on beach runs or whatever. And so,
was this when you got into running then? Was in the military?
No, I didn't get into running until afterwards.
Okay.
I did run in the military, but never seriously.
Got it.
So, yeah, early military, it was rough in some ways. Like, I had to live on the ship for almost 2 years before I was able to get a barracks room, which was horrible. I'm 6'6", and the racks are not 6'6". They're like 6'3", so my feet were always hanging off the edge.
There was no accommodations for your tall ass.
Bro, no accommodations. and something I would really like to highlight about the military is that they're poisoning everybody. The food is horrendous.
Oh, yeah.
We're eating processed food out of a can for every single meal. It's absurd. If it's not fried, it's processed out of a can. I mean, you would think that our military would have the most quality fuel in order to protect us or go to battle or whatever it is. And I feel so bad for them. And most people don't understand that it's happening because they're uneducated and they're unaware. And so looking back, I'm just thankful that I made it out alive, man. I'm just thankful I made it out alive. Like, the food was horrendous. And now that I'm so picky about what I eat because I know how important it is, I couldn't imagine going back to that. So that was another big, adversity. You can be aware that you're going through it, but also you could be going through adversity right now and you're not even aware because you don't have the skills to identify it. A lot of times identifying adversity will come from when you reach this higher version of yourself that can be aware enough to look back and look within.
I've been lucky enough. Are you familiar with the book Principles by Ray Dalio?
I'm not.
Do you know who Ray Dalio is?
I've heard the name.
So Vanguard, it's literally like the biggest financial firm, I think, in the world. They do like trillions of dollars worth of transactions. Ray Dalio is the guy that started that company.
Gotcha.
Very smart guy. And he wrote a book called Principles. And he actually side note on this story, he actually just came out with another book recently talking about, it's called New World Order. And so he basically looked back at the last 200 years of human history and shown how every empire, quote unquote, has its rise and fall from the Genghis Khan to the Romans to China to America to and so he's talking about how we're kind of on our next way down because a lot of what's happening and everyone's overweight and no one's taking care of themselves and we're all kind of
too modern.
Yes. Yeah, exactly, man. And anyways, that's not what I was bringing that up. I'm bringing up the fact of principles. He talks a lot about how he calls it just another one of those. And what he means by that is, and this is what I was saying, how I've been lucky enough to have enough of these in my life at this point now, where when you're going through those trials or tribulations or challenges in life, is that it's really hard to see it in the moment when you're going through it and it sucks and you're in the trenches. Mm-hmm. But now I've been through enough of them that I can recognize when I'm in the trenches. Mm-hmm. And Ray Dalio would call that just another one of those. It's essentially he's like, yo, right now, things suck. Everything's hard. But at the end of this, you're going to learn, you're going to grow, you're going to spiral upwards as you always do, assuming that it doesn't kill you. Mm-hmm. Is every one of those experiences, as he calls those, is just an opportunity to learn and grow. The tough part, though, is exactly to your point of having the awareness to know, oh, no, I'm in the shit right now. And that's okay. There's nothing wrong with it. Be in the shit. Feel those emotions. Things suck right now. They should suck right now. Lean into it. Exactly. Yeah. It should suck right now because, you lost your job or your spouse left you or you have terrible parents or whatever it is. It's that's okay. Mm-hmm. But just know, there's a spiral after that.
Yeah. I think, adversity is so powerful, man. It's so scary at first, but... And like how you said, once you can learn to recognize it, then you can be aware enough to lean into it. It's almost, it's like all the things that are holding us back from being our best selves are the things that we just don't want to do, right? And that goes to show that just leaning into adversity can be so powerful.
I feel like I have a visual of you training for a marathon where you were in that exact circumstance of totally in the pain cave of recognizing man, this really sucks.
Dude.
Is that safe to say?
Yeah. Marathon training. Oh my goodness. It was horrendous for me. It was the first time I had done something like that, right? Like I just started running kind of when I got out of the military, like I said, which was in January of 2022. And I set a really ambitious goal of running a sub 3 hour marathon for my first marathon. We got pretty close, 3:10, 10 minutes off. I mean, that's a long time for a marathon, but I was really happy with what happened.
That's awesome, dude.
Thank you, brother.
That's incredible.
I appreciate you.
Which marathon was that?
It was the Tunnel Marathon in Washington State.
Okay.
So
how did you decide on that one?
I decided on that one truly because it's a net negative course. So there's not a lot of elevation.
Net negative. So you're running downhill?
Basically, yeah. It's not very noticeable. It feels like you're running straight the whole time.
Interesting.
Or on level surface the whole time until the end. There's some pretty nice downhills. I think what was deceivingly hard about that course is that it was gravel. There was no hard pack, anything about that course. It was just very bumpy, uneven trails through the mountains. So, but it was fantastic. I loved it. Yeah, marathon training was the ultimate adversity, and that's something that I chose. So that's what we're talking about. You don't even have to be almost about to be in some shit to choose adversity. Everything could be going right, and you should still try to find ways to get uncomfortable. I'm not saying like go spend all your money and try to start from zero. Like let's play a game, Like I'm saying like just even little things, man. Uncomfortability leads to growth. There's no way around it.
Totally. Not that I'm recommending anybody does this, but if people want to go back to a previous episode I had with a guy by the name of Mike Bledsoe, it was so fun to talk to him because he was somebody who was able to build a lot of wealth, a lot of attention, a lot of notoriety with both his personal and professional life. And then he reached a point where he was just completely unfulfilled, wasn't happy. And he ultimately then decided to basically give everything away. And then he let his bank account literally get to zero. So
just what I said. Interesting. Okay.
Not that I'm recommending anybody does this or think this is great advice, but I remember
like purposefully.
Yes.
Wow.
And he did it because he wanted to essentially show or prove to himself that he could
start the game over.
Yeah. That he could be at rock bottom and still be okay. And I remember talking to him during the interview about like what that experience was like to be there, like in that moment where like he had nothing left. He didn't know how he was going to pay his rent that next month. And he was like, you know what, man? He's like, it was great because it taught me that no matter what, I'm fine. No matter what happens, I'm fine. Like everything's going to be okay. And he's like that next day or something like that, somebody called him and wanted to be like this like high ticket coaching client or something like that. And it was like, he's like, the universe has got me, man.
Yep.
Like,
man, that's powerful. That's powerful, bro. That's pretty extreme, but
yeah, I'm not recommending anybody does it, but it was an interesting story. But so then what about for you then? So I guess before we get too ahead of ourselves, so in the military for 6 years, you didn't get into running till after the military. You got into some of the fitness stuff while you were in the military. Is that where like the origin a lot of that was or what?
Yeah. So I wanted to be a SEAL. So that was a huge aspiration of mine because I was unfulfilled with my current job. And I thought that having something more glamorous, with more external validation, like a SEAL, everybody thinks they're badass. I was like, sign me up, let's do it. And I started training, there was running involved. I wasn't running near as much as I should have probably. I was just doing 4-mile runs here and there on the beach. But I got in pretty fantastic shape. Otherwise, like I was swimming a lot. I had really good physical scores. I retook my ASVAB, which is the test that you take to enlist in the military. And depending on that score is what jobs you qualify for. And so I didn't qualify for SEAL with my initial ASVAB, so I had to study for a few months. I took a new one. I qualified. I had an outstanding package put together. And one night I was drunk doing jiu-jitsu with some of my friends, and I hurt myself. I tore my labrum in my left hip. I was on crutches for months, and that dream kind of just vanished away because at that point I only had about a year left in the military, and it was either I'm going to do this or I'm going to get out. And so that was kind of like God's greater plan, like, hey, we're getting out. And ultimately I'm so thankful I did because, man, it's, the military, it has adversity, but it's very safe. It's very safe. It's so easy to just say, fuck it, I'm doing 20. and no hate to anybody that does that. I think it's a fantastic career, but it was not for me.
Mm-hmm. Totally. There was a small window of time where I almost joined the military, actually. It was actually after graduate school. I got my degree in occupational therapy, and soon after graduating, it was kind of like the carrot on the stick of paying for loans and et cetera, to be able to deal with some of that stuff.
Yes.
But for whatever reason, and luckily so, but like they told me that I wouldn't get my GI Bill. And I was like, F that.
Yeah.
Like, what do you mean?
It's like the only reason I wanted to do it.
Yeah, exactly. That's literally like the only like incentive for me to actually join the military, which honestly, it was a way greater blessing to not be able to go into it, because like I'm very disagreeable. I don't think I would have lasted.
Yeah. I mean, it's, yeah. I think anybody could do it. I really do. But yeah, you're right. Being unagreeable is not a good quality to have in the military, because you don't get to say. It's like, show up here at this time wearing this, and if you don't, you're fucked. It's like, yes sir.
Yeah. And also eat this trash food.
Yeah.
And do these mindless tasks, we told you so.
100%.
It's one of the reasons I'm not a good employee either. I'm very disagreeable. But
yeah, I mean, who would rightfully agree with these societal norms that are so imprinted in today's modern bullshit society? It's horrible. So I agree with you.
So speaking of that, you bring up a interesting thing that I know you've talked about before, of just like how you kind of believe that society is backwards.
Yeah.
And that people don't ask enough questions. You mind diving into that a little bit?
Thank you. No.
Yeah.
I love this topic. So that's why I created the Modern Primal. That's my name on Instagram, the Modern Primal. So humans are crazy intelligent, right? We've taken over this planet. We are the dominant species here, and we've had a lot of great inventions because of it, because we're so intelligent. We can make electricity and clean our water and have all these awesome modalities to cook food and transportation and etc. And I think we've gotten to a point where we're just too modern. I think that people are relying too much on modern advances and not enough on the primal, ancestral ways that got us here, right? Like, oh, there's a pill to fix that. Oh yeah, call this guy, he'll fix that. Oh, like, it's, the real medicine in the world is sunlight, good nutrition, moving your body, having deep, powerful, meaningful connections with other humans. And today's society just doesn't have any of that, man. And I don't want to put it in such a box, but it's an epidemic. It's like we're hurting and we don't even know it, man. People are forced to sit in rooms with artificial lighting all day and eat slop like we talked about, and then they're wondering why they're depressed. And then they go to the doctor because that's the person that you're supposed to trust, and then they prescribe them medicine that numbs them and changes their neural brain chemistry. And I think that a lot of people could really benefit from adopting, primal ways to, like, I'm not saying you have to get rid of your comfortable couch, or I'm not saying that you don't have to eat good foods, but there's different ways that we can make them. And a lot of it just requires like a few extra small steps that are just a little uncomfortable. And so, yeah, I think, it's everything. I visited my good buddy Dom Fusco in the hospital the other day. I don't know if you heard what happened to him. Very unfortunate. But he's doing great now. He's a fighter, man. Much love to him. But I went and I visited him in the hospital, and I was disgusted. I was like, this is the worst place for somebody to heal. Mm-hmm. This is the worst place for somebody to heal. It was absurd. It was absurd. It's all part of big pharma. It's just, and I'm not hating on any doctors. I have a lot of respect for people that go into professions of serving others, but the system is backwards. What they are taught is backwards. Their intentions may be pure, but the way that they implement just isn't. And, it could go from that to our food system, to the way that humans communicate and the way that adults live their lives and the whole retirement scheme. It's all a lie. We're meant to play and be happy. And and just love, man. And today's society, it makes it so freaking hard. Just like how the grocery store, it's hard to even find good foods unless you know where to go. Like, it's the same thing in, as a whole for society.
Have you ever read the book Sapiens?
No.
Oh man, put it on your freaking list.
I need to.
Yeah, dude, it's up there of like for sure top 10 for me, one of my favorite books of all time. But one of the principles that they talk about is exactly what you're talking about, how if you look back at like hunter-gatherer days of humans. So basically the book is about like all the human civilization from like whatever 10 million years ago to where we're at today and even potentially into the future. And he basically, one of the things that I found fascinating about it was like, if you look back relatively not that long ago, hunter-gatherer days, we lived in tribes. He said a pretty normal day for people that lived in these small tribes in the woods or whatever was oftentimes the men would go out and they would hunt, or they would find some animal that they could kill and they would bring it back sometime in the morning, while oftentimes the females of the tribe were cleaning up a little bit, maybe starting a fire, like making some clothing, whatever, tending to the tribe itself. And then the men would come up with food, and then they would eat, and then they would just hang out as a community the majority of the rest of the day, just enjoying themselves and enjoying life as it should be. And that was pretty much the routine of their life, right? Mm-hmm. And basically they lived a very simple, happy life without needing all of these other things and stimuluses and 50-hour work weeks and all this craziness of like the modern society, right? Exactly what you're talking about. And I just found it so interesting is that we look back at the hunter-gatherers days of like, oh, they're so primitive and they're so archaic and like old, and they were probably miserable, and it was probably horrible. It was probably like cold and hot, and they had actually their life was very simple. They were relatively happy. They were actually very smart relative to their time. Like they could probably whittle a bow way better than you could, which on some level is an incredible amount of intelligence. It's just a different kind of intelligence. And like, it's so funny how we look at it as if it's like, because it's old, it's bad, or somehow because it's new, it's good.
Yeah.
Like that's the human assumption, right? Old is bad, new is good, when in reality, that's not true at all.
That's powerful, man. I love that. I love that. You're damn right. And I think dude, it all revolves around this currency that society has adopted. I mean, let's be real. I'm open to money, right? You have to accept it if you want to get it, but I think it's a faulty societal currency. I don't think that's truly what, should determine what type of human you are. And unfortunately, like, we've built this society on a throne of lies. It's a faulty foundation, and now there's an entire house on it. And so what can you do, right? You got to play the game almost, like win in Rome.
Dude, I want to know, how did you get into a lot of this? Because I'm excited about how passionate you are about this message that you're talking about, of more or less just like doing, I feel like luckily in our society here, when I say our society, I mean like our Austin bubbles, is there's a lot of people kind of going back to a lot of the things that we're talking about, but as a greater whole of America or society as a whole, we're not. And I'm curious as to you, how did you get into, is it because you're here in Austin? Is it the communities you adopted in? Is it because you started looking into ways to challenge yourself? Like, how did you get into all that?
Yeah, I think part of it is being in Austin and just having amazing people that I can look up to and seek guidance from. And I think the biggest part is social media. I filtered my social media to follow awesome creators that preached a similar message. I was a huge Paul Saladino fan. That's who got me started on it. I mean, I saw him on TikTok one day eating balls, and testicles, and I was very intrigued. And so at first I thought it was a parody. I didn't think there was much validity to it, and so it got me curious, which is a superpower. You have to be curious. You have to ask why. And so I was like, why is this guy eating balls? And that translated into eating red meat and all this other stuff. And then I looked deeper into it. I'm like, oh, if I was living backwards in this way, then how else am I living my life backwards? And I think I entered this radical period of my life where I just asked why to everything. I questioned everything. Why am I waking up at this time? Why am I working this job? Why do I hang out with this person? And I found, my conclusion of it all is that humans are just such patternistic creatures that we just fall into these cycles, and it's almost impossible to break out unless you make it a priority, unless you try to. But if you don't know anything's wrong, then you're never going to try to break out. And so, yeah, just my transition from military to civilian life, I started taking control of my health through nutrition, firstly, and then I obtained this awesome version of myself. I got shredded. I was mentally clear. I was just on my shit, and I was like, oh my God, no pill could make me feel this way. No drug could make me feel this way. This is what it feels like to be in control. This is what it feels like to be healthy. My whole life, I was shoveling Pop-Tarts and Goldfish. I didn't know what it was like to not have brain fog. I didn't know what it was like to not have depression and anxiety. Like, that was just, these are the norms of society. And another issue for these is that people identify under all these things so much. Identification, it's like, man, I agree that stuff like this is real, like depression, anxiety, your circumstances, like, it's all real. But the second we identify as, oh, I have depression, it's like, what the fuck are you gonna do? What are you gonna do? Like, are you okay with that? We can change it. We can fix this, right? And we're just taught to go for the pill. We're just taught, oh, you have this, you are this. We're telling kids that they have attention deficit disorders and to get on pills that do the same thing. And I can't believe it. I think that that's criminal. I think it's criminal. It makes me so sad. You're setting that kid up for so much failure, and society's backwards.
Dude, I love your passion behind this, and I agree with everything you're saying too, even to the point where it's one of the reasons that I got out of healthcare, honestly. Like I told you, I used to work as an occupational therapist, and I was in the system. I saw the days in and the days out of what we used to call frequent flyers. It was the same people again and again and again because the system was never set up to actually genuinely help them. It was set up to get them to come in and spend as much money as possible, essentially. And most of those things, the high expense prices are surgeries and prescription drugs and just basically like, how can we pump more of this into this person? I don't remember the exact statistics. Somebody can fact check me if they want to, but it was something along the lines of, I think it was like 90% of healthcare costs are the same, like 5% of people essentially they're just basically gouging these people for as much money as humanly possible, which insurance ends up paying for anyways, as a way to basically keep feeding the system. So I echo everything that you're saying, man. And I love that you're making an impact on helping people get away from a lot of that.
Yeah, I appreciate that, man. I appreciate that. And I think it's so important for those of us that are aware to spread this message. And, I'm sure that you've had similar situations, but it's not easy. It's not easy just telling someone, hey, you're wrong. You know what your parents told you all your life? You know what your teachers told you? You know what you learned in school? It's wrong. You can't say that because you can't just question somebody's reality like that because we're all in our own. So the only thing that you can do is set the example. And then you'll have, your friend, and he's like, what is in Joe's Kool-Aid? Why is he so happy? Or why is he looking so great? And that's the way. Even if it's family, friends, like, yes, you can do your due diligence to like maybe give a nudge or, here and there, but there does come a time where you can't force anybody to do anything. It has to come from within.
And which leads me to my next question for you, which is thank you for that. It's one of the reasons that I love social media is people love to hate on social media. It's like rotting our brains and swipe culture and whatever. Sure, there's a dark side to it, but also exactly a lot of what you're doing, which is why obviously you've grown the following that you have, is that you are preaching obviously a message that people resonate with, which is why you have the following that you have. What do you feel like are the messages that you're really putting out there that are supporting that message that you're talking about on your social media? And the second part of that question too is like, why do you think people are gravitating towards you?
That's a great question. So to preface that, I would like to say that my social media journey started not too long ago. I've been posting consistently for about 13, 14 months now.
That's it.
Yeah, that's it. And it's been a phenomenal journey. I think that my biggest message that I haven't done the best job of preaching yet, but I want to, and this is my mission, is truly helping people break out of their victim mentality and learning to take ultimate responsibility. I really can't harp on that enough. I think that that is the key to achieving what you want. What is holding you back is the shit that you just don't want to do. We have it inside of us already. All the answers are here. It's all in your head. We get to choose. And I want everyone to fucking know that. We get to choose. You could literally wake up tomorrow and not go to your fucking job if you don't want to. You could wake up tomorrow and end things with your spouse if you'd like. You can wake up tomorrow and move to a new fucking country. We can do whatever we want. And I just want everybody to know that. So that is really what, you know, I want to show people on social media. I post a lot of fitness motivational content. I teach a lot of, you know, nutritional stuff. It's led me to have an amazing coaching business. I get to work with lots of clients and we, you know, I talk about this with all of them and we do fitness and nutrition. And I think people have gravitated towards me for that. I really do, you know. I think that the real ones just understand, you know, and everyone can become a real one. You know, maybe that's the wrong way to go about it, but I think people like seeing somebody that's unafraid to say things that go against the norm. I'm as counterintuitive as it sounds, I'm not on Instagram for followers. Like I'm not on yes, I would love more followers and it helps, but I'm not on Instagram to like make people happy. I'm on Instagram to give the God honest truth, my truth, you know, my God honest truth. And I think people really like it. I've kind of turned it into like my own personal little blog, you know, on my captions. Like sometimes, you know, I post every day, so not everything's a masterpiece, but I love to just go deep on my captions and just write about what's on my mind. And I'm not, you know, doing it from a perspective that's like, this is what you need to do. Look at what I'm doing. Like, this is how to live. Like, I'm doing it like, the only reason I know this is because I'm either struggling with it myself or I've already overcome it. It's, you know?
Dude, I love that so much. I have had this conversation a couple of times now. I don't think ever on the show, but just that aspect of the value in practicing what you preach and walking the walk, because I think it's so easy now. And this is where the beef, pun intended, with social media comes from. In regards to, you can literally talk about anything. You can preach on anything. You can act like an expert on anything. You can take some information from somebody else and regurgitate it onto your own platform or email or whatever as if it's your own. But because anybody can do it, it's lost its value. The value now, in my opinion, purely just speaking from what I've noticed on social media in general, is the walking of the walk. It's when the people go and do the thing and they execute on the thing and they go, this was my experience with it, and this is my truth to your point because I did it. Is it the right answer? Is it the thing you should do? No. This is my experience because I did the thing that I'm talking about. Take it or leave it. That's the value in it now. The value isn't in like, here's information about this thing I learned about or somebody told me about or I'm talking about. It's like, did you do it? If not, then I'm probably not going to listen to you. Did you do it? Cool. I'm way more likely to listen to you all of a sudden.
Yeah, man, it's, you know, and who knows if people are actually walking the walk, you know, even if they say they do. But that's when it comes to, you know, we have so much information at our fingertips, bro. Whether it be social media, a quick Google search, you know, whatever it is, there's so much information. There's so much conflicting information. So it's up to each individual to have that internal filter or auditing system in order to only consume content that they think would benefit them, and then take it a step further to only take that content and add it to their arsenal of ideas or the way that they think. You know, I feel like I know a lot about nutrition, but I never got certified in anything or I never took any courses, and it's just through my personal journey, like you said, and not everybody's journey is the same, and there's not a one size fits all, but you know, I think that there are a lot of things, especially, you know, that I talk about. It's like, you know, we can all take something from this, right? Like, you don't have to eat exactly the way I do. You don't have to go train for a sub 3 hour marathon, but it would probably help if you changed a few things in your diet and if you started running, you know, like there's levels to it.
Something I wanted to make sure to tap in with you on, because I've heard you talk about this a few times, so I'm kind of curious. Before I ask this question, how old are you again?
27.
27. You clearly have a deep desire to have children.
Yeah. Yeah, I do.
Okay. Why, first of all? Let's just start there.
I think that just going through something such as I did, as a kid, and I don't want to make it sound like my story is worse than anybody else's. I don't feel that way. I feel like I know exactly what I don't want to be for my kids. I know exactly what I don't want my kids to go through. And I know how important it is to be a good parent and role model, because that's everything. Kids are sponges from the time that they can start having thoughts. From the time that they are born to the time that they leave your house, they soak in everything that you do. Oh my gosh, it's there's levels to this shit, but I want to be this amazing version of myself that can raise good humans in this ass backwards world, and I'm so passionate about it. It's going to be the ultimate prize, becoming a father, and I don't think I'm ready at this second, and I don't think you're ever, truly ready, but I know I have some work to do in order to become a more honed in version of myself, to where I can bring kids into the world and give them that good life and teach them right from wrong. I have to be able to walk the walk. And, oh man, it's like, humans are meant to procreate. Like, we're meant to, like, there's a reason that, we have our appendages and that we can have sex, and it's, so there's the instinctual and primal urge. And then there's just, I want to give somebody the love that I didn't get. I want to give somebody the life that I didn't have. I want that so deeply. So yes, man, of course, I would love to. I can't wait until I'm a father.
How many?
I think I want to stick to around, I think 3 would be my cap.
Oh, yeah. Okay. I thought for sure you're going to be like 12. Just a friggin' army.
We'll have to see. Man. Yeah, let's just play it by ear, right? I don't want to put myself in a box. I think of it like...
You can always change your mind.
Exactly. Unless, no, I guess you can always change your mind. But yeah, I always just picture myself as just like this big like bear with like a bunch of cubs like on his back, and it's just... I just got a dog like a year ago, and oh my God. I can't imagine how much I'll love a kid, because that dog is my freaking kid. Like, I can't imagine, bro. I feel like I'm just going to cry all the time. Like, I don't even know. I'm
so happy.
Yeah, literally.
Every day's the best day. So this leads us to today. Modern Primal Provisions. What's the future for you, man? I mean, other than the kid thing. Like, I know you have this chisel gum thing going on. You're doing the coaching, fitness coaching. What do you see the vision looking for with all the stuff you're doing here now?
Moving forward. That's something I preach a lot on my social media, is just keep moving forward, right? Some progress is better than no progress. So as far as my business endeavors go and personal life journey, I want to continue inspiring others through my social media channels. I have huge aspirations to grow them, to be very large, and not for selfish agendas, but so that I can reach more people and ultimately, preach my message to more people. I am starting a podcast this year. That's one of the ways that I'm going to do it. And I said this year because I should probably say this month. There's nothing holding me back except for my own limiting beliefs. Just continue with the social media journey, continue to hone myself into a better human, man. I am not perfect. I don't have it all figured out. One thing that I really want to strive to do is just become in control of my emotions, obviously they're there for a reason. I think they're very important, and we need to listen to them and lean into them. But, I just know that I have more self-work to do. And I'm glad that I can understand that, because it's like, bro, we're not ever going to get to clock out until the day we die. Like, the amount of money, guess what? It's never going to feel like enough. The job, it's never going to feel like enough. Everything, the race goals, like once you get one, you're going to want another. You get to one peak of a mountain and there's always going to be a higher one. And I think it's important to continue to go to those different peaks, but it's more important to take a look at the view when you get there. And that's something that I've struggled with. So, I'm trying to smell the roses more, take more looks at the view, and just enjoy my life grow my businesses, grow my supplement company with Chisel Gum. That's our first product, but we plan to launch an entire line of ancestral wellness products. So, it's just another way that I can help influence somebody's life, whether it be chewing less toxic plastic gum. You know what I mean? That's the goal of Chisel Gum. It's just all natural tree sap that we source from Greece. It's amazing. 10 times harder than normal chewing gum. Helps you breathe better. It's fantastic. I'll have to get you a pack. And for your listeners, if you guys want to head over to modernprimal.shop, that's where you can find it. 100% pure Chios Mastic gum. It's amazing. And yeah, man, I just want to continue to meet more awesome people like yourself and create an awesome community and tribe and just really just live life and love. That's what I
had a
do.
sliver of that gum. I was me and a mutual friend of ours, Chris Bates, did an interview with the Riser Boys. And what's Braxton's brother's name?
Zach.
There you go.
That's one of my business partners.
Yeah, he had some there that we got to try out.
Yeah. I gave some to Chris, actually. We met for coffee, but yeah, what'd you think?
Big fan.
Okay, I love it. It's not like, I mean, if you're expecting, Hubba Bubba or a super minty gum, you're not going to find it here. What you're going to find is tree sap, man. Like, I think we find more often than not the good products don't necessarily taste the best, in quotations. What is taste like? All our taste buds are deceived anyways in today's society. But this is more so to be a health product, right? It's a gum alternative. It helps chisel your jaw, which in turn dilates your nasal passageways to help you breathe better. You can find that by reading James Nestor's book, Breathe. And it has no plastic or chemicals in it, which most gum does. Jazzercise, you could argue, oh, well, what about the Jazzercise? Plastic, And, it's hard to be perfect with that in today's society, but this is one of those things where, little things add up. Little things compound. So
yeah, I definitely am planning to get my hands on some more because the timing of it for me was good because I had been dealing with some gut stuff, and I think the gut stuff was related to the fact of a lot of the artificial sweeteners in some of the gums I was chewing.
Yes.
And so
100%. And mastic gum actually has gut healing benefit on its own. So people will literally grind that gum up into powder and take it in capsule form because that's how powerful it is to heal your gut.
No kidding.
So yeah, it's very powerful. I use it for my flow state when I'm working. I use it as a fasting gum, and it has that coating gut healing benefit as well. So it's very powerful.
I got 10 rapid fire questions for you.
Okay.
It's the first thing that comes to mind. Are you ready?
Let's go.
What's your best business advice?
Just start.
What's your best marketing advice?
Don't be afraid to post stuff because you're in fear of somebody else's opinion. The right people will find you.
So agree with that. What's your favorite part about business or entrepreneurship?
My favorite part is working for my fucking self. It's great to work for other people's missions, but god damn, it feels good working for your own. You want to sell your own shit, right?
When are you the most productive?
I'm the most productive in the morning.
Who is your inspiration?
Oh God, rapid fire. Sorry. My inspiration, let's see. A big one is my little brother. I want to be a great role model for him.
Love that.
Mm-hmm.
Tell me one secret or something most people don't know about you.
I worked a night shift job when I got out of the Navy. It's not really a secret, but not a lot of people know. I worked a night shift job for almost an entire year, and I bought a house, last November. And the day I closed on my house, I quit my job and went all in on my online businesses.
You were working night shifts?
I was working 12-hour night shifts while starting so that's when I started the Modern Primal in my social media. I was posting like once or twice a week when I would have time, and yeah, it was really uncomfortable for me to quit that place because I didn't have consistent income when I did it, but I knew that I would always be able to go back and get another job.
For somebody that values your health as much as you do, it shocks me that you'd work a night shift.
I know. But I had to touch the burner to know it's hot, right?
Fair. What would you change about yourself?
Absolutely nothing. I mean, I just want to keep getting better. I don't want to change anything because it's all for a reason. I don't want to change the past. I'm very thankful for the past, good, bad, and ugly.
Maybe just more chiseled jaw?
Yeah.
What's your favorite app or resource right now?
My favorite app for research?
App or resource?
Oh, app or resource. I would say definitely Instagram. That's my most active app. That's where I run my businesses. I'm very active on there, and Yeah, I think Instagram's a very powerful tool.
When were you the happiest?
Right now.
I knew you were going to say that. What's your favorite part about Austin? And you can't say the people.
My favorite part about Austin is...
And you're an OG. You got to have a good answer, right?
My favorite part about Austin... interesting. Now, I would say my favorite part about Austin is the trail on Saturdays, man. It's so electric. It's just, you know what I'm saying? It's like, how could you not have a good run out there? So I love it. I love that, and I love Barton Springs. That's my two favorite parts.
Talk about going full circle. We started this conversation about running that trail, which ironically, I ran it this last, I think it was almost positive it was Saturday. But I always run in like the middle of the day, so I'm the only psychopath out there.
Gotcha.
And luckily, my girlfriend picked me up by the end of it, and like just a car full of electrolytes. Because like by the time I finished that 10-mile run, man, I was so depleted.
It's a good girlfriend.
Oh yeah,
You down for this Saturday?
Yeah. Are you serious?
All right, it's gonna be let's do it. 10 miles.
I have one last question. Before I ask that question, though, I want to do a couple things. One, you mentioned that you wish you would take some more time to, I guess, enjoy the journey in the present. So I want to take a moment and pause. Close your eyes. Take a deep breath. Thanks.
Thank you. That felt great.
I want to acknowledge you, man, for overcoming trials and tribulations, especially as a child, even through the military, through all the things that you're even doing today, from getting in cold water and running 12 miles, running a marathon, for serving so many people for those same missions of really trying to get people to break free from the societal norms and to live a more intentional life. And for showing up last minute for this interview, even though I think I texted you yesterday, and making it happen. So thank you.
Dude, that means so much. I'm honestly honored to hear those words from you. Thank you for giving me the space to be vulnerable with you and share this with so many people. And I can't wait to learn more about your journey as well as we continue to develop this relationship.
Hell yeah, man. Before I ask my last question, where can people find you?
So you guys can find me on Instagram at @themodernprimal_. Yes, I'm still working out the trademark. That's where I'm most active. So just go ahead and find me there. I'm very responsive in the DMs.
Yes, you are. I learned that recently. Last question. It's really whatever your best piece of advice is for your younger self or anybody else in that similar circumstances of maybe just being in the beginning stages of figuring out business and health and living a more intentional life. What would maybe be your best piece of advice for your younger self or anybody else in that circumstance?
Curiosity. Remain curious always. Ask why. Be naive. Don't be afraid to take risks or leaps of faith, right? Like, you're not going to win a lot of money at the casino playing $2 hands. So just give it your all. You can always go back to the safe job. You can always go back to whatever it is, you know. There's
your
just
hometown,
Exactly, man. Take risks. Take the leaps of faith. Those are going to provide the biggest returns. So that's my number one thing.
Be naive. I don't know if I've ever heard that one. I like that a lot.
Heck yeah, man.
Cool.
Yeah, you got to be naive. That's how you ask why, you know. And yeah.
Love that. Thanks for being on the show, brother. Appreciate it. Hey friend, thanks for listening to the show, and if you have any feedback for me about the show or any other guests that you'd want to see in the show, definitely shoot me a message. I love engaging with my audience and figuring out how I can provide the best value possible to the people listening to this show. Before you go, I only have one ask of you, and that would be to check out my 3 Tips Tuesday newsletter. It's 3 marketing tips every Tuesday specifically for the health and fitness entrepreneur to help them attract new leads. If you press the link in the description, it'll take you directly to the archive of all my previous newsletters, and you can decide for yourself if it's something for you. If you end up finding it helpful, you can just sign up for the newsletter and you'll get it in your inbox every Tuesday. Thanks again, and keep hustling, my friends.